Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Cubed, the Marvel Snap podcast. Welcome to episode 18. I know we've been away for a little bit. Partly my fault. I was out in Florida, and we wanted to do this before Dakota, aka Bok Choy, goes to New York. So as always, I already mentioned it, but Bok Choy is here on everybody's left, and aka Dakota, and DarkHelmit is on everybody's right, aka Donald Tello, aka Don. So there's actually I thought we had a lot to talk about, but there are a few things we want to talk about, but it's not too much. The cast won't go too long. But the first thing I want to do is how are you guys doing tonight? I know it took us a while, but I think we're here and I think we're good to go.
In all honesty, my computer is dying very, very quickly, and it's kind of a sad thing. So sorry for the delay, but here we go.
I'm so sorry, your computer's dying. I always get taken back. The last time my computer did this to me, it was at a gig. So I sympathize with you. I hate when computers just slowly die like this. It's the most frustrating thing ever. So I apologize, but Costco has great deals, and
To
I
match
always
his
advise to do
audio,
it.
Dakota, go ahead and try and speak into the mic more.
You may get up in here like
There
this,
you go.
dogs. Is
Yep.
better.
Yeah, that way it matches our volume. Because I
I
see
apologize.
yours is kind of like dipping,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's just because you're a little bit away from the mic. So
I'll be back.
I know the first thing we're gonna do, we're kind of gonna do it the opposite way, because I don't know if you guys saw our meme, but this week's card is, I don't want to say pure garbage. I feel like it could be used for something, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump into it right now, just so we can talk about it. So the card for the week. See, the worst thing about it is I don't even have it pulled up because I thought I would have it in my collection, but no, I didn't even go for it. So here, let me pull it up here. So Makkari is the card of the week. She is a 3 cost 4 power card, and the effect is after after the turn, runs from your hand to a random location if possible. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and let Dakota start us off on this. How do you feel about this card?
Not a fan. I just don't really see me ever using this card. It's good if you want to get priority really quick off of like if you were. I think we talked about this earlier today. If you're in a match and TVA is present, this card might get you some cubes. Like that's fantastic. But in reality, if you're coming down to it, you're not going to sub this card in a surfer deck. There's better cards than her. It sucks. Looking at this card. This is the first time I even got Martyr. Okay, when it came out, I was like, let's roll with this thing. This card is the first time I looked at it and just said, I don't even want to try with this. I'm going to save my keys. I'm going to save my tokens because this is just hot trash in my opinion. So
All right. How about yourself, Don?
Man, this is the best cards they've come out with ever. I mean, there's been no better discussion. I mean, I'm telling you, 6,000 tokens for like 4 keys. I mean, 100% with this card, right? Um, Actually, weirdly enough, I think I'm the only one who did pull once for this, and luckily I got in the first try and called it a day. So, unlike you losers, I am a collection complete, unfortunately. It's an interesting card, right? So I think this is one of those cards that all of a sudden is going to get buffed just like week one, and then it's just going to be just a little bit better. But as of right now, it is a pretty crummy card. I've played with it a little bit. It is interesting to see it just like have a free 3 cost out there. But overall, it's very underwhelming, especially for a tier 5 card, right?
Yeah. So okay, it's funny that you mentioned that because I know you said it probably might get buffed, or I think it will get buffed, but I think it came. They already buffed it before it came out, right? It was originally a 3-3, and I think having it as a 3-3 would have made it be a little bit better than a 3-4 because as a 3-3 it has Cerebro, right? Like Cerebro 3 decks and Cerebro 2 decks have probably been the most dominant out of all types of Cerebro because Cerebro 2 at the time you had, Captain America, which, if he's in the ongoing lane, he gives +2 to ongoing, which automatically gives your Mystique and your Cerebro +2 power. But now because that's changed, they kind of nerfed what's his name, Captain America in Cerebro 2 decks. But in Cerebro 3, you have Valkyrie. So Valkyrie can change anybody that is not a 3-power card to a 3-power card. So I think Makkari would have excelled in a C3 deck because it's just like you want 3 cost cards on the field as much as possible. The thing that C2 has over C3 is it has Mr. Sinister and Brood. Those are a 2 cost and a 3 cost, and those give you 2 and 3 cards on the field respectively. So C3 was lacking in the way where you could just fill the field, right? So I feel like Makkari was a good card if it came out as a 3 for that specific reason. But now it's a 4, it's kind of more, I don't know, you can't really use, it's not widely used. But I think if they buffed it up to a 3-5, I think not only does it have raw stats, which we see a lot of 3-5s are, Lady Sif. We have Corvus Glaive. Those are not only good effects, but it's pretty decent power at a 3 cost. So I think buffing it to 3-5, it also works in C5. C5 has been a deck that's been around for a couple months now, and it does pretty well. But because a lot of cards that are 5 power are higher cost, it's harder to get them on the field. So if it goes to 3-5, I think it'll have a place in C5. So anything else you guys want to add about this amazing card?
Yeah, why didn't you guys pull?
I did. I pulled out.
Damn.
Nice.
So, I mean, that was this is probably the, like Dakota mentioned, the most underwhelming card they have released in a while. Not to say it's terrible, right? It's just it's not as good as it comes to releasing a card of this stature, right? Because especially if they're making it a 5, what is it, pool 5? They make it a pool 5. That's kind of insane. If they made it a pool 4, I would understand. Not so great. Can't really play it everywhere. But pool 5 is just insane in my opinion.
Same. I mean, you can't expect this to be in the same class as like Sasquatch. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just put it in perspective of where we have 5s at. Like these cards that have always been coming out, they are solid. They actually are viable in the game. They change the game. This card has done nothing. It will do nothing unless unless there's some sleeper deck like discard something going on out there with strong guy. I don't know. Like some meme deck somewhere, but legitimately it's frustrating that they would put this that high up in the game. It shouldn't be there, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it's very weird that they put it as a pull 5. I didn't even think about it, comparing it to Sasquatch or comparing it to any of the other, even some of the season pass cards. You know, these season pass cards are way better bang for the buck than Makkari. If Makkari was a season pass card, I'd be like, okay, decent season pass. You know, no, Don.
I don't think so. No, even if it was a season pass card, it'd be pretty bad.
But you use the key.
We would. Let's be honest. If you spent $9.99 for that card on season pass, it'd still be way disappointed. You'd be like, "What the hell is this? And why did they do this?"
I would understand because typically
No.
season pass, you don't want it to be an overpowered card, right? They've done it quite a few times with Loki and I can't remember other season pass cards. But yeah, like they've done it before where these cards were broken. Oh, Zabu was a season pass card, right? So it would be understandable if they made a card that you have to buy, like if you want it, you know, when it first comes out, you have to purchase it to be not so good, you know, because it's so weird that they would make it like this, and it's a like we said, pool 5 card, which you need either 6,000 tokens to get, or be very lucky with the keys that you use to get this mediocre card. You know, that means they're kind of like losing money. Like people aren't going to pull, people aren't going to use resources. Don got lucky.
Let's be honest, Don always gets lucky.
Yeah,
I don't
I know.
understand what your luck is with these daggum keys, man. But every time,
Yes, I do.
God damn it! It's like,
I think
please.
I need to
That
go
luck.
bald or something, you know, just like zzz, and then pull. Oh man, or maybe just rub Don's head for luck.
Oh, dude, yeah, magic head, get your ass over here.
So yeah, I mean, I have nothing to add to this besides I'm very underwhelmed. I'm excited to be whelmed by the card in the future, but as of right now, very underwhelmed.
For sure.
All right. So we will go into the OTA that we did miss discussing. It happened already, but I want to go over, you know, our thoughts on all the changes that we've had. So the first card, you know, it was a major hit, especially, I mean, it was a major hit to all of us because I think this card actually took us all to Infinite, you know, this season. So the card I'm talking about is Professor X. So they changed him from a 5 cost 1 power, and the ongoing was lock down this location. Cards can't be added, removed, etc. The only thing that could get added there was Jeff, right? Because Jeff can be played anywhere. But they changed it now. So he's a 5 cost 2 power, ongoing still. Moving is the only way to add or remove a card from here. Now, let's start with you, Don. How do you feel about this change to Professor X?
Yeah, I kind of feel like you know. I
Hold on, hold on, Don.
at the end of the day, we were already seeing. Damn it.
I wish you could hear how perfect that was when you started to scream to the astral plane because it cut out. That was one of the best. Oh my god.
Anyways,
Sorry, go ahead.
so we already saw like a almost a nerf to this card, right? When we saw the Thanos changes, right? So there was another card that could actually play into this area. So I think that they kind of jumped the gun with changing this as much as they did. I mean, really, I can't count how many games. Like, there were plenty of games where I'd play Professor down and just lose that lane instantly, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of a crapshoot every now and then. So I do think that obviously this is a death blow for Professor X, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and I feel like it's unfortunate because this card, I know it was. I think that the terrible thing about it was the interaction with Cannonball, right? So Cannonball is what made this broken, where it locked down the lane, and since nothing else can get in, Cannonball would send, if they filled the other lane, Cannonball would just destroy the other card. So I feel like that was the thing that they probably should have looked at instead of Professor X, because now he's kind of useless. I mean, as a 5-2, it's kind of pointless. Where I feel like if it's this kind of effect, it should be a 3-2 or something like that. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Professor X next, because if moving is the only way to add or remove a card there, then it would be great in a move deck. But you'd have to really play this out sooner. So, how about you yourself, Dakota? How do you feel about this change?
Well, essentially, doing this turned it into a 5-cost storm. I mean, what's the difference at that point? Other than, I mean, obviously, it's like a storm mixed with armor, right? You can't destroy the card either that's in that lane, correct?
Yeah.
You can't add to it.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, essentially, they just kind of turned it into two different kind of cards. It's frustrating that this is the way they went with it. I agree with you 100% that I think that Cannonball should have been looked at or some other cards, because honestly, this kind of destroys an entire archetype of lockdown control. You have Jean Grey, you have some other things you can do, but this was a different style. Like, everyone hoots and hollers about Hella all the time. Obviously we'll get into that later, but she's still playable. You can't do this lockdown style anymore. And yeah, it kind of went a little rampant there for a little bit. A lot of people used it in that tournament, especially with the Conquerors. A lot of people had that deck. Like that was the winner in those tournaments. So I see where this was the villain for a little bit. See the frustration, but that's still, in my opinion, shouldn't have been the cause for this to get you. I think it's a little overkill.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I feel like lockdown decks should be a thing, right? There should be a deck that can control the field. Now, if you need to nerf this card, you have to do it in a better way that, makes it usable. Because then now lockdown is a dead deck. You don't play lockdown anymore. Um so, like I said, I think they do a rotation of like what should be strong. They did this with, we've seen it a lot of times where, especially like, say, let's Angela, right? Angela's very strong in the beginning, then they toned her down, then they killed her, then they brought her back up to where she is now. So, we see a cycle of what they're trying to do. So hopefully, like, we said, it'll come back. But right now, he's dead. Can't really do
Yeah.
anything with him. Like I said, in a move deck, it can work, but literally, if you're playing this in a move deck, your turn 6 is the Bifrost guy. What's his name?
Heimdall.
Heimdall.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no, straight up. You're very pigeonholed
Mhm.
playing that in a move deck. It doesn't actually work.
Because I
Your
mean,
opponent.
let's think about the other move cards, right? Like, so you could still move Jeff in there. You could still move Nocturne. You could still move Vision, but you can't Doctor Strange in there, because you can't play Doctor Strange in there. You can't go Spider to bring that in there. You can't Cloak to get in there.
Mhm.
You could Iron Fist in there, but it's very a niche kind of thing to get in there. So very few cards to actually utilize Professor X now. Like he's not useful in anything anymore. So maybe Thanos. I don't
And
know.
even then, I mean, wouldn't be too synergistic with
No, just
like
because he's
you
a
want to
5 cost.
yeah.
So
You're gonna like you want to have vision before you would want to put
hmm
in
yeah, he's too
Professor.
shitty a cost for it to be this way. Like I said, if he was in a move deck, he should be at least that at most a 3 cost with that 2 power. Because even putting this at a 5/7 probably would be the minimum to be like, okay, yeah. Because then he could close out a lane. Like, okay, he
Mm-hmm.
has enough power to close out a lane. And they have to work to get in there. But for one turn. Unless they magic. So anything else you guys want to add on this card?
Also, he must have gone to the Shire Empire because now you can move
Yep.
with his leg.
Yep. They're making it canon. And speaking of cannons, you like that?
Oh,
Nice,
the
nice
next
transition.
the next card they changed was Cannonball, right? So what they did was they just removed a power from him. So he went from a 5 cost 8 power to a 5 cost 7 power. Now, if they gutted Professor X, I feel like they should just left Cannonball the way he is, or maybe even give him maybe make him a 5/9. But other than that, I feel like there's not really any change. There's not any deck that you could probably use. You could probably throw them in like a junk deck to make sure that they are filling the lane before you use it. Um, but yeah, other than that, there's not really a lot of decks you could probably use them in anymore. So let's start with you, Dakota. How do you feel about this change?
just going off of what I said before. I mean, having your massive play line just get massive play line get smack like that, you're not going to be able to pull this off. It really is. He started to get some lift. This was a card that was enjoyable when he came out in the X-Men versus Avengers season. Man, this card was so fun because he was synergistic, right? There was these really cool things we could do in the game, which second dinner I'd love more of that. But it was awesome, and it was fun to play with him. That was it. That was the last time we really had anything. Now this deck came a rise, and it was, dude, this is just it's been fun. Okay, I'm not the best operating it. I'll be honest. I'm not the best down control, but I still had a really good time playing this style. And to have his time to shine just get kind of stifled, it's frustrating. It really is frustrating. I was so excited to have it all set up. You throw down your professor. It's like this is go time. Your other opponent's looking at this thing going like, I should probably leave. And then it's fun to just go, okay, let's see what they got. And you can just take them out. Unless they have Thanos. But it's a big game changer. And to have him just be getting hit on top of it too. It's like, man, stop. Leave my boy alone. Let him have his time in the sun.
All right, how about yourself, Don? What do you think about the change to this card?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the power doesn't matter that much. I mean, it is nice to have that extra 1 power, but really, it was all about that Professor Exchange. That really was the biggest nerf to this. So, if I just don't see where this card fits anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, we're going to see this card go from like being played a ton to almost no play again. I know when it first came out, there was kind of this like, oh, this is kind of an interesting mechanic, and then it's like it just kind of disappeared for pretty much a long time until about this season,
Yeah.
and then it kind of really ramped up to like, well, let's hit that with a nerf stick three times. So let's call it a day.
Yeah.
Like I said, we won't see this one for a while. But you know what? The good news is it does open up the opportunity for new parts of the meta to kind of, you know, be figured out. So while I hate the nerfs that happen here, it does give an opportunity to kind of reinvigorate your thoughts on decks in this game. So there are the pluses for that.
Yeah, and I think he was seeing um, more play than Shang-Chi, if I'm not mistaken, because um, Shang-Chi requires you to have a card that's plus 10, right? 10 plus. Now, this guy, Cannonball, just requires you to be the highest, you know, power card in that lane. Didn't require it to be 10. And it, if if your opponent had another spot open, that literally won them that lane. So it's like it had to be precise. I mean, I've had games where I'm just like, okay, let's try and outthink this cannonball player, right? If I leave a spot open here and I leave a spot open here and one switches, do I still win both lanes, right? So it had play arounds. That's what was cool about it. But you were stupid if you could think that if he played Professor X and there's a chance that he has Cannonball, you're going to try and stick out that game. Like, no, that's a leave. Like if they Professor X you and you're not winning that lane, you practically leave, or you try and win by having an open spot, in both lanes. So it's disappointing to see him go away so fast, because he was a shining ball for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, hopefully something in the future, near future, makes him viable again. Not to say he's not viable right now, he's just not as good.
I think if you took this card and you actually made it more of a it moves a random card, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you put Professor X back the way it was, I think it would make it better. Because
Mm.
right now, I mean, it was targeting the highest card there, so
Yeah,
you knew exactly which card it was going to hit, right?
yeah.
I think if they just switched it up, you put Professor back to the way he was, you make it a random card here. I think that would solidify some of that, where it's like, hey, maybe you're gonna hit the biggest, maybe you're gonna hit the smallest, and that's gonna kind of change the variability on that. I think that would work out to make this be able to put stuff back the way it was, but also to make it a little less effective.
But I think a lot of the only thing is I think a lot of people don't like the randomness of things. And a lot of random cards. I don't think it would see more play if he got that change, because when people want to play, let's use discard for an example, right? Like they're using Lady Sif, which targets things instead of random Swordmaster, right? Swordmaster has more power, but they'd rather use Lady Sif because it has a target effect. So like changing him to a random, I think it would actually make him see less play, unless he was like 5'10". Then he's
Less
Shang-Chi.
play than it is now, because it's going to be see pretty much no play now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think it would stay the same if it was a random card, just because. But he would have to have a boost in power, right? Because you do see some of those players that do play the Swordmaster over Lady Sif because it has 2 more power, right? So if it was like a 5'10", 5'11", then I think it would see some play just because of the raw power that it has. But as for an effect, which doesn't target, if it's just random, I would rather use the Shang-Chi, because then I know for sure that card is getting destroyed. So that's my 2 cents. All right, so let's move on.
Fire.
Let's move on. Then the next card that we had changed was Hela. So they did an overhaul change on the decks that were reigning supreme. But I feel like this change was very mid, because it's easily counterable with either Shadow King or with Luke Cage, And I know this Hella decks don't run it, but swapping one of your big cards for one of those to ensure that your cards don't even lose, even if it loses, the power, it's not that significant. But before I continue, let me go ahead and read what the card does. So it used to be an on reveal, resurrect all cards you discarded to random locations. But now they added with -2 power. So your Infinite, instead of coming back at 20, it'd become coming back at 18, which is like, what's the difference? It's still a beat stick. So how do you feel about this change, Don?
I think it was. I think it's a good change, right? I mean, ultimately, it's not a significant change, but it's enough to make you go, okay, you know what? I can't tell you how many like hella decks I've lost, 1 or 2 points here and there. This also does play a big factor in the like Iron Man, right? So now when you have Iron Man, right, and he's at a -2, and then they're playing the Onslaught and the the Tribunal, at least you're getting a -4, a -6 off of that. So it does actually do at least a little bit to almost do 2 off of each. Not that it's a huge significance, but it is enough that at least you get a little bit.
Yeah, and I feel like the Hella Tribunal would be affected more just because of the Iron Man, right? The Iron Man was such a huge part of the Hella Tribunal.
Absolutely.
All right. So how about yourself, Dakota? How do you feel about this change?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on it. It's right now the tribunal move with this one is a little. It's kind of in the past. When Eliath became such a prevalent card, we stopped with the Invisible Woman. We stopped with the Modoc play. With Blink coming out, that opened up a whole new can of worms for Hella, right? And that's why everyone started to bitch and moan about this card, going like, "Yo, y'all need to touch this because it's overpowered. We can't seem to stop it." Now, I probably get some hate, but I love playing Hella. This is a really fun deck, and it's brainless. It's something you can just do, and you're like, okay, I can know where I have the rip. I'm gonna win or I'm gonna lose. I got these cards discarded. Everything's good. I don't see a Cosmo coming my way. Great, I won. And it's enjoyable. I like the style. I like playing with the big cards. But at the end of the day, doing a -2 power off the way the deck is run now, okay, cool. So I think the biggest hit you're really gonna do is maybe be like when I'm returning my black cat. Okay, cool. So instead of 9, it's what, a 7. No big deal. It's not the end of the world, and it's still you're gonna be right where she was. I've heard from like when we were watching the Conquerors, people commenting on everyone's thing, saying like, "When are you gonna fix Hella? When's this?" Blah blah blah. People want it to be where she's only returning like 3 cards or like 4 cards at the most, and it's like honestly, it's interesting because at what point do we just say, "Hey, we're just gonna get rid of archetypes?" Like, yeah, we have Ghost Rider who can return things too, but that's 1 card. I think that the Hella play it's in my mind, I don't see it as big of a deal, and I enjoy this style.
I think people would be more wary of what they discarded if if Hella brought back only a certain amount of cards, right?
Yeah.
So if Hella did bring back say 3, then you're just gonna be like, okay, well, do I play the Lady Sif or do I play the Corvus Glaive? I'd play the Lady Sif because I know it's discarding a top card, right? Corvus Glaive might discard your, excuse me, Jubilee, So if it discards Jubilee, you're just like, well, I don't want to bring. I mean, maybe you want to bring it back, but what if I draw all my big cards? Right? It's not going to do anything. So
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to say um, which is better at the moment. But I feel like if it brings back only 3 cards, it would slow down the deck for sure. People wouldn't make so many uh, ballsy moves, right? They would have to make more calculated moves. So I think if they did that, I wouldn't be mad at it. So anything else you guys want to add?
No, I mean this was a boomer bust deck for most of the time.
Yeah.
You either know you're going to win or you know you're going to lose. And if you see it popping up, you either know you're going to have a shot or you know you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part. So like, I mean, if you're losing 4 to 8 cubes against this deck, then that's your own fault.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, now that they added the discard view, you shouldn't have any problems. You're like, okay, I know what they discard. Before, you're just like, all right, what did they discard before? You're just like, do I lose? I don't know if I lose. Now you can be like, okay, I do lose. I'm gonna get out of here.
Mhm.
Um, so another card that they actually changed in the same vein is another discard card was Ebony Blade, and it was a 4/0 ongoing, can't be destroyed, and its power can't be reduced. I feel like the Ebony Blade was a semi overpowered card because if they discarded a card like Infinite, like what was the one that goes only on the left?
Giganto.
Giganto, right? Or if they did something else big, then you're just like, well, I can't destroy it. With Shang-Chi, I can't reduce it with Shadow King. I'd have to Rogue and then Shadow King, or Rogue and then Shang-Chi. So you had to do like a multiple kind of move in order for you to actually deal with this card. Now, was it easy to get an Ebony Blade with that much power? Some games, not all games, but I feel like it left little to no counterplay, right? Every card should have a counterplay. That way it's just like, oh, okay, it's kind of like rock, paper, scissors. You can't just play a game of rock and scissors because then rock would always win, right? You need them to have a way to counteract this effect. So because of that, they changed it. They kept the same cost, the same power, but it can't be destroyed only. It could have its power reduced, so that's good. Your Cyclopses will work, your Things will work, your Shadow Kings will work. All that stuff that can reduce power will now affect Ebony Blade, which is great. I mean, I'd rather try and destroy it, but can't have both, right? So let's start with you, Dakota. How do you feel about the change to Ebony Blade?
Kind of like what I was saying with Hella. Man, when War Machine, when he came out and there was the deck running with Ghost Rider, Ebony Blade was a freaking MVP. And I loved that it couldn't be destroyed and all that. But I agree with you. It needed to have a counter. I'm glad that it actually can be destroyed in an aspect with Shadow King. It makes you play a little more on edge. You got to be like, okay, I'm not just going to win this lane completely. You're fine with from Shang-Chi, but hey, what if he's got something a little sneaky up his sleeve? You don't know. So I like that it makes you continuously think about what you're going to do, which is completely opposite of what I said about Hella, because Hella is a brain dead deck. But when you're playing this card, yeah, you got to have a chip on your shoulder because the odds are your opponent will have that. So be ready. And I think that's cool.
Okay. How about yourself, Don?
Yeah, I think Dakota hit it right on the head. I mean, this is a strategy game, right? It's a card strategy game. Having a card that you can just put down and not think about really kind of takes away a lot from it. Don't get me wrong; there are things you have to do to um, make it work, right? You have to play this card, and then you have to discard it, and then you actually have to play the card, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, as having the ability to counteract it is a good thing, and to be able to just reduce it down and make it so it doesn't completely take everything away from it.
Mm-hmm.
It still is a card that can have some really good power, but it's not immune to everything, which is good.
Yeah, and I feel these types of decks, like it runs like what is it? Black Knight, Blade, Lady Sif. Some run Ghost Rider, right? So say if they do discard an Infinite, and you have the 20 power Ebony Blade, and then they bring back the Infinite with the Ghost Rider. At least it's susceptible to a turn 6 Shang-Chi Shadow King play. We know, bam, you could probably win both lanes by playing Shang-Chi Shadow King. So it's cool that they have some counterplay because once you see them discard that Infinite, you're just like, well, I lose. You know, can I win the other 2 lanes? Can I beat an Infinite or can I beat the Ebony Blade? I can't beat both. So it was very hard to counterplay once they get a good Ebony Blade. Now when they get a bad Ebony Blade, you're just like, yeah, bitch. You know, but,
Started Ironheart.
yeah. Because they play Black Knight and then they play Corvus Glaive and you're just like you're just like you just hope they don't discard something too strong, that because Infinite is tough to beat already. If you see them on other decks where Infinite is played and they skip turn 5, you're just like, all right, can I beat an Infinite turn 6? If I can't, you leave, right? But Ebony Blade and Ghost Rider gets it out so easily. So those 20 powers are no joke. But yeah, counterplay, which is great. Now, the next card that they changed was Red Hulk. Now, before it was a 6/9, and before it was if your opponent had unspent energy, it would gain +4 power. Now it's a 6/10, and if your opponent has unspent energy, you get +3 power. Now let's start with you, Don. How do you feel about the change to this card?
This is, we all knew that these nerfs were going to be going back and forth, right?
Yep.
I know when we originally talked about this, we're like, getting a +3 power seems about right. 4 seemed a lot because just 2 with that a +8. Now it's +6, which a 6/16 is nothing to scoff at. But at least it's like, okay, I can plan around it. It's not too bad. So I think this is a good change. Moving him back up to 6/10 is nice because if he does get played down and you have used all your energy, it's still Shang-Chiable, which
Yes.
is another good thing. Versus where he was before, where he was a 6/9. If you used all your energy and he didn't go up, well, he could just play it and stay from that Shang-Chi. So
Yep.
I think it's a good adjustment.
Okay. How about yourself, Dakota?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Don. We all called this a while ago that this is going to get hit again. No surprise. I wouldn't even, again, I'll say it again. I won't be surprised if it goes down to 2 +2 instead of 3, just like they did kind of how the Hulk runs. Watch him go up to maybe a 6/11 and then keeping him at a +2 for a good while. Because this card is OP. It really can still, even after this, if you want to call it a nerf, it's still going to be in a lot of decks. I'm running into it everywhere. I'm still using it like most people. It's a very strong card. It runs smooth, even with this quote unquote nerf. Yeah, he's still present.
Yeah, I feel like they changed this card. Didn't really do anything, right? Because the only thing it did, like Don said, it made it Shang-Chiable without having to skip any energy. So you know that when you played it, you're already in danger. So you could be like, okay, I have to play it on the right time. Now, because your opponent sees if it gains or not. Now, if your opponent sees it, then you're just like, okay, well, it's mind games then. So it's like, okay, is he going to play it on turn 6 or turn 7 if there's a turn 7? I saw how much he gained, or is he going to play something that adds up to 6 energy, right? So it's a nice little kind of bluff while you play, and it's good in decks where you have a lot of small cost cards, because then you're like, okay, they're going to play the Red Hulk here. And then you play like a bunch of stuff, and you're like, oh, where's Red Hulk? So it gets them thinking. So I like that part that Red Hulk does show the opponent, not like the Hulk, where the Hulk, it only shows the person using it. So it was a good change, but I agree with Don. It might change again. So we'll see how well it does. So the next change that we got was a pretty fast change for one of the season pass cards, where I think they felt it wasn't doing well, so they had to do something. Now, if Makkari was a season pass card, it would probably be even faster. just as fast as Makkari. They would probably change it that fast. But Gilgamesh changed from a 5'7" to a 5'9". Not too significant, but it makes it so having him as a turn 6 is actually a somewhat decent power play. So we got a lot of testing done by others. I didn't really test him yet, but I've had him play against me, and he doesn't do too well when he was at 5'7", right? So to make him more competitive, 5'9" was a jump off point, and I feel like if they go a bit higher, I wouldn't mind. But I think he would have to be a 6 at that point. Like if he starts like at 10, he'd probably be a 6 in my eyes. But how do you feel about the change to this card, Dakota?
I think that this card has a lot of fun play with Zoo. It's been enjoyable, but I have lost a couple of matches because when he's like, okay, you do the math, you're like, okay, this guy should be able to pull this off, and they come in with something you didn't see that's just a little bit stronger. You're like, all right, okay, so he's good, but he's not that great. Having this buff puts him back where it's like, okay, this is a viable card in this Zoo deck build. Watching the Conquerors tournaments, I don't know if it must have been a requirement. It was like, y'all got to play Gilgamesh because when they did play this fool, they never won. Barely ever won. I was like, wow, you're really selling this card, aren't you? So yeah, I think that they did it for a number of reasons, but the number one is probably because you looking out at the Instagram for Marvel Snap. A lot of people in the comments were like, "Oh, we hated the Eternal movies. Why are we doing an Eternal season? I'm not going to buy the pass." And I guess that had to be the case across the board because for them to buff a season card this fast, they must not have been doing good on sales. So they're trying to make this card relevant, and that's how I see this going.
Sorry, I just want to interject that I feel like just because the movies didn't do good, I don't think that should affect the card in any way. They're Marvel characters. Like before they were in the movies, they were Marvel characters. So I felt that that kind of statement is weird to think like, oh, because the movie sucked, the card sucked. Right? There's so many cards that are in the game that haven't even been introduced in any live action or cartoon. I mean, let's talk about Wave and Arrow. They're
Dude,
strictly
Jeff the Baby Land Shark. Come on.
Yeah, Jeff the
When has
Baby.
Jeff ever showed up?
Fairness.
Wait, what's up, Don?
Hey, in fairness, they were right. This card sucked. The movie sucked. So I mean,
yeah, but they were right. But
I mean,
lawyers. Instantly done. Daddy Don with the facts. My man.
I just feel it shouldn't have any bearing on like, oh yeah, like if he started at a 5'9", I feel like they would say, oh, it sucked, just because they didn't like the movie. But I feel like it's not giving credit to the actual card itself. There because I mean, the Hulk is a really great character, or sorry, Captain America was a really great character, and it wasn't until recently that it became a good card. And those movies were amazing, the Captain America movies. So,
oh yeah, 100%. I agree with you on that too. Like I'm always blown away by the comments and what people are saying. Like because of this, that means X, Y, and Z. It's like where the hell did you even get that remotely from this? Like what? So yeah, the internet is undefeated.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like thinking about like the cost, right? Like the strongest card should be the most cost, right? No, I mean, yeah, Thanos is a 6 cost, but not every 6 cost is the strongest character, right? I mean, I don't know. I can't, at the top of my head, I can't think of a 1 cost that's like a really strong character in the comics or movies.
Ebony Maw is one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, he rivals some Avengers. Yeah, and for them to say something like that, I'm just like, well, it's a card game. It's not the movies, right? So or it's not the comics. So I'm guessing they're just like they're trying to make excuses on why they don't want to get it. So yeah, so the change to this card, I feel like it was a good change. It makes it more appealing. I mean, I don't know if that would make more people buy the season pass, but I feel like it would help. So, what about yourself, Don? How do you feel about the change to this card?
Um, I don't know if it's really going to change a whole lot. I mean, let's be honest. I've played with it a bit. It's an interesting card, but then again, we've seen so many of these cards where it's like, hey, I don't know how to play this. I don't know how it's going to fit in. Next thing you know, it gets nerfed to hell, and it gets two cards nerfed. To be honest, just like Cannonball. So
Yep.
time will tell, just like I always say.
Exactly. All right. So the next whoops. So the next card that we have that was we talked about this. But it was a I don't know if it was a buff or a nerf. It was Captain America. So Captain America was changed from a 3-2 to a 3-3. And he was already changed to have his effect go to an ongoing that your other ongoing cards here have +2 power. Now because when he, like I mentioned earlier, when he had 2 power, he was great in C2. But now this has this card more as a Spectrum ongoing deck card. But let's start with you, Don. How do you feel about this change?
No, be on top for too long.
All right. Um, wow, that clears up. How do you feel about this card, Dakota?
Well, like you said with Spectrum, that's really what I have used him the most with, that destroyer build deck that you're able to lock down with. You got Cosmo, no one's gonna F with that lane. Because again, when I was playing that was when Cannonball was just a monster. He was
Yeah.
everywhere. So I enjoy kind of using that with him. And yeah, having the +1 on his power definitely didn't hurt it. The deck still runs very smooth. I'm cool with it. I enjoy it. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy that he's getting a little buff. Now, granted, I never play Cerebro decks. Don't have good luck with them. I don't know what it is. They hate me. So every time I've ever played Cerebro deck, it has been just a nightmare for me. So yeah, him going out of that, I don't care. I don't give a damn because I like playing him in the Destroyer deck. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, because now he wouldn't work in a C3 deck because he only gives +2 to the ongoing. So if he was gonna buff, what is it, the Mystique and Cerebro, it wouldn't even buff it up. So I don't know. It's kind of at a weird spot where he can't be played in C2 anymore. He could only be played in like what is it? The Spectrum decks or any ongoing deck, right? So the next card we have that was buffed was Shauna. So she went from a 3-2 to a 3-4. And like you mentioned earlier, Zoo is coming back. With all these changes, I feel like Zoo is gonna. It's probably. I think it's one of the top decks for the week, and it's insane because I haven't tried it yet. I really want to try it because it takes me back, right? The only thing is I'm scared of is still the same card, Killmonger.
Oh yeah, dude.
So, but I think you have Kyera that you could add into the deck now, for that protection. So, how do you feel about the change to Shauna?
Dude, just having Zoo kind of be prevalent again, it's exciting for me. Just the nostalgia of what got us into this game, what had us like, well, I wouldn't say what got us into it, but our original competitive decks going up into Infinite for the first time using a Zoo deck. Man, every now and then before this last season, I would throw a zoo deck out whenever our mission was like play one cost cards because I enjoy it so much. It's just a fun style to play. You're always terrified they might have Killmonger, but you're
Yeah.
like, no, please, let me get through this. So the fact that it is relevant again, I am all for it. It's been a really fun time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like them buffing Shauna gives it gives Zoo another thing to be competitive. And I feel like that's a good thing because, like you said, we did come from, in pool one, we're just like, okay, well, once we reach pool two, we have to be afraid of Killmonger. But since we're in pool one, we're okay right now, you know. So it felt like you didn't have to be careful when you're in pool one. You're just like, yeah, play all the zoo cards that you or the ones that you want, and you don't have to play it on turn 6. You can play it on 1, 2, and 3. And then 4 you play Kazar, and then 5 you play Blue Marvel, right? And then turn 6 you play even more ones. But
Mhm.
once you reach pool 2, you're like, okay, well, be wary of Killmonger. But now we have Kyara, so if you draw it, at least you have some type of protection. Now the last card that we have that was updated was Stegron, which very surprising.
Mhm.
So this card changed from a 4/6 to a 4/7. The on reveal before used to be move an enemy card here from another location. Now this was at random. Now the on reveal effect says move an enemy card here, one location to the right. Now we just talked about this earlier, right? Where instead of randomness, it gives you a clear ability where it's just like, okay, well, you still have some of the randomness where you don't know which one it's going to move, but
Mhm.
now you know it's going to move one location to the right. So if it's just like, well, I need to move at least one card from here. Like, say it's an Ant-Man lane. You knock one out, and it's just like, oh well, no more Ant-Man, right? So there's so many decks like that where they try and stack a lane, and you could just use Stegron, hit it one location to the right, and feel good about it, right? So now, how do you feel about this change?
Got me in mid young. No, it's cool because, like we've said before, there has to be some sort of way to play into this strategy. When it was complete randomness, you're not going to know which way you're going. You don't really get to set up your next move, or this doesn't get to help you benefit from the movement
Hmm.
unless you're playing a strictly move deck and it's like, okay, something moved. Here's Miles Morales, cool. So it's cool that it's still random enough to where you don't have 100% that's going to be this card or that card. But the fact that you're able to control which way it's going definitely gives you a leg up trying to move forward in on curve with this card. So I think it's great. I'm happy they're starting to make things a little more strategic. It still has the randomness, but it's not completely random.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Yeah, I feel like I've been wanting to make a deck that moves your opponent's cards, you know? So, now we have more reliable stuff that can move opponent's cards. So you have, Polaris, of course you have Magneto. Now Stegron, you know where it's going to move. Spider-Man, very random. You don't know if it's moving to left or right, or middle.
Mhm.
So it's not as good as the other ones. I know a lot of people do like Spider-Man. Um, but I was more of a fan. I think everyone was more of a fan of his old effect. So, his new effect, it's cool, but because like I mentioned, the randomness is the thing that kills a card's viability. If you knew where it's going, you could make more informed decisions. You don't have to be like, oh well, I think let's rely on Lady Luck, right? That's what hella players do. They're just like, well, I'm just gonna discard all these cards, and hopefully they just spread itself where I win all 3 lanes. Like you said, it is a brain dead deck.
Oh yeah.
You're just like, okay, on turn 2, play nothing. Turn 3, play Corvus Glaive or play Lady Sif.
Hmm.
If we were on turn 1 and you have Blade and something on the very right was really good to discard, play Blade. But no,
Hmm.
now, you have to actually think about some stuff. And I feel like that's better for the game. Like,
Yeah.
it will raise the level of players because now they have to think like, okay, where is it gonna go? If I know where it's gonna go, what card can go? If this card goes, do I still win? If that card
Hmm.
goes, do I still win? Right? Then you get to weigh out your options. So I feel like it was a good change, and I feel overall this OTA was a great thing for the metagame. They're changing it up, making sure some decks, excel, some stay quiet for a little bit. But overall, I think it was a good OTA. How about yourself?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's always interesting after these big changes to cards to see the meta just be like, I don't know what to play. And you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
kind of see people are like just trying out things like I've ran across a lot of Sauron decks these
Really?
last couple of days. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that buff that they did a little bit ago, people are going, okay, well, now that this is gone, let me try old reliable, old
Yeah, yeah.
faithful over here.
Is
And so it's been kind of
Shuri
funny.
into either Red Skull or Vision, and then just like win from there with Taskmaster? Yeah,
Hmm.
it's crazy. And I'm glad, like, that's the thing. They nerf things, so they bring stuff back, and then they nerf those things, and then bring the others back. It makes the metagame not so stagnant.
Hmm.
So, and like I said, I do enjoy when they do release cards on a weekly basis, but the prices at which they sell these cards is insane.
Out of hand.
It's insane. Like, if you're not ahead by, you know 15 keys, you're going to be falling behind. And we're
Hmm.
at that point now where it's just like we have no keys. So of course, yeah, we're not going to buy the card because it's not a great card. I'd rather wait till it's 3,000, or if I get it randomly. If I get it randomly from a one of the caches from the spotlights, I'd be happy. I'm just like, okay, cool, collection complete again.
Hmm.
But for
Yeah.
now, I will save my keys that I don't have. So
I'm right there with you, bro. I don't see spending a key on this thing willingly anytime soon at all.
yeah.
Likelihood will be like, oh, this is the spotlight with something else because they're trying to get you to get it, and I'll end up getting some dumbass variant that I didn't want in the first place. But it's frustrating. It should not be this expensive to just play the game,
Yeah.
especially when all of their trailers, we see them all the time too, because we're always looking at Marvel Snap. We talk about Marvel Snap. Our phones hear it. It's always the first like you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to play the game.
Yeah.
It's like, bitch, we do
Yeah.
because
You
you
have to spend
can't do it
$100
anyway.
to keep up to play
Yeah,
competitively, you know?
yeah.
Like, and that's the thing. Like, I enjoy playing the game at the level that I'm at because
Mhm.
it doesn't make the game stale. You play against a lot of these good players. You end up on their stream sometimes, and it's just like what Don says. You don't only play that content creator; you're playing their entire chat. So it's you versus like 1,000 plus people because they have those people to correct their mistakes. I don't
Mhm.
have anybody behind my back looking like, was that the correct move? No, it's I rely on myself. I'm not saying the content creators don't rely on themselves, but everybody makes mistakes. So do they, but they make less mistakes because everybody's watching their moves.
Mhm.
So, uh, so feel good when you actually win against a content creator because you didn't just beat them, you beat their entire chat room.
The whole following, dude, a
Yeah, the whole.
thousand plus. You're like, yeah, I can scoot all your motherfuckers.
Yeah.
My
So.
hello deck is unstoppable, bitch.
So yeah, unfortunately Don cut out here at the end, but was there anything else you'd like to add before we end the show?
I was talking to a few people over the week about the roadmap that
Ah, that's
Snap
right.
changed.
Dang.
So we can wait. next week when Don
Yes.
has good like connection, because I think that'd be something I'd love to hear his opinion on too, if that's cool.
Yes, yes, yes. I totally forgot about that. I even took a picture of that. I do, and we'll probably make it at a earlier time. You know, we things did run a bit late because of technical difficulties, but hopefully, I do want to discuss this. Sorry, everybody. It was on the docket, but with the OTA happening, if we do get another OTA, we'll make it quick so that way we could discuss all the other stuff. We do want to get into the nitty gritty, and we don't enjoy when people lose out on stuff, especially us as players, right? You know, we are supporting this game that we love to play, and it's not like any other game, any card game that we've played before. I mean, I come from a background of playing Yu-Gi-Oh, from playing Magic, from playing Pokemon, you know, and I played those card games. But this card game is something different. You know, I also played what was that the World of Warcraft one, the
Hearthstone.
Hearthstone. Yeah. So I mean, I get it. You know, um, I haven't probably. Oh no, I probably spent way more money on Yu-Gi-Oh than this game.
Damn, boy, that's a
Yeah,
lot of.
yeah,
Holy shit!
yeah.
I didn't realize how into Yu-Gi-Oh that you were. That's
I
crazy.
was, yeah. I think Yu-Gi-Oh was the number one thing I got into besides, yeah. Yu-Gi-Oh was my card game at the time. You know, I didn't spend
Mhm.
as much on like other card games, but yeah. I mean, it's such a refreshing take on card games, and it's not. What's cool is it's not something you have to hold, right? You don't have to bring it to a friend's house to play. You could be like, "Hey, are you on? Give me your room code, you know, and we'll play a match." Right.
Mhm.
And it's funny because we actually don't do that quite often. We're just like, yeah, let's play some random people because it's a live person most of the time, so you get to
Mhm.
test your skills against them. Um, and it's such a refreshing way to play, and because we love it, we want to see it excel. So, you know, when you promise things, it's expected that you follow through, right? So when if you're a company, your word is all you know, we take from you. You know,
Mhm.
you don't give us anything. You know, we technically all compensate you for what we get, right?
Mhm.
Our time, our money, you know, becomes your money, you know, as a company. So,
Yep.
but you could see that people do love the game that much to continually do that. Like, hey, if you just make it a little bit cheaper, if you make it more accessible, they're willing to spend that money.
Oh yeah.
So, and it's something
Yeah.
I do want. I can't believe I forgot about it, but yeah, it is something I want to discuss next week. We'll go into a deep dive of somebody made a post, and they have the roadmap, they have the things that they promised, and the things that they left out on the newest roadmap. So
Yeah.
we'll go over all that stuff on the next cast. So please, um, join us on the next cast live if you want to if you want to leave your thoughts about it. So I just want to shout out those people that brought it to our attention because you know we do try and bring you guys content to keep you guys entertained. So we appreciate you guys giving us the feedback. We appreciate you guys following us on Marvel Snap, Cube, the Marvel Snap podcast on Instagram, and Cube Marvel Snap on TikTok. If you haven't followed us, please consider following us. Leave us a follow on at ggMarcLee on Twitch and on YouTube. This is where we provide live and playback options. So, anything else you want to add, Dakota?
Just thanks so much for just the DMs, you guys. It is an awesome time getting to just talk to you individually about whatever's going on. Like when you're letting me know, like, oh man, I'm my game is buggy right now. I like seeing this stuff because it's something we can bring up too. You know,
Mm.
it's enjoyable to have conversations with you guys, seeing you kick ass on the ladder, seeing you podcast on Conquest. You sending me your favorite variants, everything. Please send us everything because
Yeah.
it has just been a joy to have this community that we're building right now. And I appreciate you all big time. Like it has been a blast to be. I run another page where I do fishing content because that's my other love and passion. But I have to say, making memes for Cubed and being alongside Mark and Don with this has been just so much fun. I just get so excited. It's like, hey, normally I'd be asleep right now, and I know most of you guys probably are, and I really am bummed that Don's having connection issues. But straight up, for us to be able to sit here and talk to you guys about this game, it is so exciting. 'Cause, yeah, I mean, when we're at work in between our breaks going off and we're loud. We got everyone knows we play Marvel Snap. And we're
Yeah.
always anybody we're like, hey, you don't have to spend money, but we do. And yeah, that's what, we definitely want to talk about next week, just kind of the roadmap and everything else. But again, just thank you all so much for the love and support. Please subscribe, tell your friends, help us grow. And yeah, that's my last shout out. Love you guys.
Yeah, if you guys want anything else more specific, let us know. Just like Dakota mentioned, he does a lot of our communications with other people. But sometimes, Don and I jump in there, and I'll text somebody, and I myself enjoy it as well. Like I enjoy seeing what you guys are going through because my perspective is only the games that I have been playing. So when I see the nuances that you guys go through and, wherever you are at in the ladder or on conquest or, whatever game mode or, how your feelings are about something that Second Dinner has done, it's enjoyable because we're like you guys, we're just regular guys playing Marvel Snap. Like, that's our bio, right? Like we aren't trying to be the top 100. We're not trying to be to tell you what to play because we're learning the game as much as you are. Unfortunately, we're not in full content creation mode. We don't spend all our time just drafting up decks, going through the little nuances. We ourselves, we what they call net deck, right? Where it's just like we look at somebody else's deck that they created and it's like, oh, that could work, but I'll put my own twist on it, right? So we don't copy it per se, but we'll take inspiration from it. So, and it's the people that actually take their time and have to, they do that, they have more following, of course, because they have the time for that. But we appreciate you guys giving us your time, even though, we don't do that. But all in all, thank you so much. And hopefully we will catch you guys on the next episode of Cube, the Marvel Snap podcast.
Hell yeah.
Have a good night.
Vito say bye bye.